Hello, and once again welcome. Today's video is going to concentrate on the function of the various aspects of the drum set. And as band directors, music educators, most of the time we think of the instruments in terms of melody. If you're a trumpet, flute, saxophone, if you are a one-note producing instrument, you think of melodic ideas, you think of the ideas of expressing yourself on the instrument in terms of melody. Well, in the drum set, it's a unique situation once again because we have multiple instruments that actually speak in a singular manner, whether it's a cymbal, whether it's a drum, you know, or what have you. But when you put them all together, you get a completely different kind of event. And so, in those terms of multiple instruments being played at the same time, I wanted to talk about how the different parts of the drum set actually function. Okay. Now, the first, and the reasons I want to do this is that a lot of times drummers themselves don't think in these terms. And once you do learn this approach, it'll help you with your students, not only when they're playing the drum set, learning how to play the drum set, but how the drum set then fits into your ensembles. Okay, here we go. The first instrument I want to talk about is what we call the hi-hat. Now, the hi-hat really has a lot of history, and I'm going to go into the history of the different aspects of the drum set in another video. But today I want to talk about function. So the hi-hat is an interesting part of the kit because it can be played both with the feet, or it can be played with sticks, or it can be played with two sticks. And when we talk about the hi-hat in terms of jazz, if we're playing jazz, you would hear the hi-hat pedal on the second and fourth beats primarily, something like this. And for the first 50 years of the drum set's existence, all the way from the time when William F. Ledwig first patented his foot pedal in 1914, all the way up into the 60s, the hi-hat being pedaled on 2 and 4 was the primary sound that you would hear from this instrument. When Papa Joe Jones was playing with the Count Basie Orchestra, he started doing this. And it's a very subtle thing to do. If you were to look at my foot, if we were to zoom in the camera, you would see my foot would probably only be moving maybe a quarter inch at most to get that open and closed sound. I'm not going, in other words, I'm not opening the cymbal up, you know, so much. You can see it yourself. I'm not going as far as the cymbal opens. I'm literally just giving it a little peek. Giving that small, it's a subtle thing to do. But here's what's important. When Papa Joe was playing that rhythm that I just played, what he was doing was playing the same rhythm when he was playing on the ride cymbal, same rhythm. And the reason he would do that is that, one, gives you different textures, different sounds, but two, you can get real quiet. You can get quiet on the ride cymbal as well, but then you hear the wash of the ride cymbal. Then you don't get the same definition, whereas here, because on 2 and 4, 1, 2, you hear that chick sound, that the sound stops. Whereas on the ride cymbal, the wash of the ride cymbal continues. So what drummers in the 30s, taking the lead from Papa Joe, and then Buddy Rich and others, you know, picked up the ball, Max Roach, Kenny Clark, they found out that not only did the hi-hat in jazz terms give them another voice to be able to keep time for the band, it gave them a chance to play softer and put some space in the music. There's that space. Now, once rock and roll started in the 50s, the hi-hat changed completely. And while in jazz, we think of the bass, the string bass, playing 4 quarter notes as the person that's keeping the time. When a drummer was playing in the swing era, in the big band era, you heard this. And the reason being is that the double bass was not amplified, and you're playing with 15, 20, at least 10 horns, and you needed to have those quarter notes stomped out. Now, on this drum set that I'm playing here, I'm playing an 18-inch bass drum. Back in the 30s, drummers, you know, Chick Webb, for example, he played a 28-inch bass drum, 10 full inches bigger than this. Why? Because in the Savoy Ballroom, he had hundreds and hundreds of people dancing. He's playing with a 20-piece big band. He's got to stomp out those quarter notes. And so you had this. And so the time being kept by the bass drum went along with what the double bass, the string bass was playing, and the 2 and 4 on the hi-hat is what augmented the time, but also gave the backbeat to the dancers, gave the backbeat to the musicians. You know, in America, we love our backbeat. We love to accent and give a pulse to the 2nd and 4th beats. So when we put all that together in the jazz time, that's what you have. And when the pieces got quieter, but then the drummers would do something else. Rather than have the snare drum playing 2 and 4, we might go cross rim. You get this. Or you might even just go on the rim itself. What I like to do is I put my thumb on the top of the hi-hat. It just gives a little bit of deadening, and then I pull my left stick up with the fingers underneath. Buddy Rich was great at that. He did that all the time, and you can do rolls. You have 2 cymbals. Don't be afraid to use both of those cymbals. Once we switched to rock, the hi-hat became this. And I ask my students all the time, when you go see your favorite drummer, what part of the drum set do you like to listen to? Guess what they never say they like to listen to? This. Why? It's like Chinese water torture. So when you listen to rock music, then why do drummers play? Because if I take out the bass drum, all right, now I got the backbeat again, 2 and 4, just like in jazz. But if I take out the backbeat, now listen to what I got. How would you like to go to a concert, pay $50, $75, and listen to this? all night. You wouldn't. So the obvious question is, why do drummers play eighth notes on the hi-hat? And the answer is that the eighth notes on the hi-hat are the metronome for the ensemble. The hi-hat's not being played for anybody out in the audience. The hi-hat is the guy that's driving the bus. Hey everybody, this is where the tempo is. Listen to me, this is where we're going. You got that? Alright, yeah. Let's put a little pop to it. And that's your basis for rock music drum set. What I hear so often when I see high school bands or junior high bands, middle school bands just starting out, it's almost like the drummers are a deer in a headlight. You know, they're playing so stiff. You know, it's as if there's only 4 beats and they're exactly the same in every measure. So they'll play the first measure, and then they'll play the second measure, and they'll play the third measure. Exactly the same. No, that's not it. You don't want to do that. What do you want to do? You want to tell your drum set players that the bass drum in rock music is the key instrument of the kit. A bass drum and the rhythm that the bass drum plays, you want to match up with what the bass player, the bass guitar, what his rhythm is going to play. So if it's a funky tune, the bass drum will be playing the same rhythm that the electric bass, or even if it's an acoustic bass, you can have a double bass can play funky music. But the bass drum determines the difference between the different rhythms that a drum set playing. Because if I play that same pattern I just played, if I played a different bass drum rhythm, notice that the hi-hat rhythm and the snare drum rhythm was exactly the same. Now in the funky rhythm I played on the end of 2 a couple of times as opposed to 2, but most of the time, if you handed out to your band 10 rock tunes, chances are the rhythm that the drum set player is going to play and the guy who wrote the chart wants the drum set player to play is going to be something like this. Hello. See, that's what happens. We'll talk about that too, the idea of holding your sticks loose. I should leave that in just so you get a kick out of it. I must tell you in a quick aside that when I play a gig, if I play a 4-hour engagement, or even if it's a rock show, a couple hours, I'll drop my sticks probably 3 or 4 times. And that's a good thing, because a lot of times I might just, you know, I'll be playing and I'll drop it and I'll grab it. That shows me that I'm nice and relaxed when you play. The other aspect, when youngsters are first learning to play the drum set, they'll grab their sticks like this and they'll get a real serious face and they'll be like this. You know, get that serious look on. You know, look like they're hurt. You know, their arms are like this and you can see all these muscles. That's another lesson that's coming up, the idea of being relaxed. It'd be sort of like a violinist who's got a hacksaw. You know, playing their violin like this, like they're trying to saw right through the instrument. You can't play drums with any pressure, any tendency of tightness at all. You gotta want to be as relaxed as you can. And you already know that when you're teaching, whether it's the embouchure on a trumpet, or when you're teaching your flute players, or possibly the only ones that that might have some tightness that this goes a little bit against is your double reeds, oboes, bassoons. But really, once your bassoons and oboes get the idea of having that embouchure, the tight embouchure with the reeds, then it's a matter of keeping the rest of the body relaxed. You know, and that's sort of the special aspect of the double reed instruments. When it comes to drums, you want to be as relaxed as you can. So I hope everybody got a kick out of me dropping my sticks right then. I'm going to leave it in. You know, this isn't about perfection. This is about understanding what we're doing here. Okay. So then, in terms of jazz music, if the hi-hat is being played straight eighths, and that is being transferred to the musicians as the metronome of the piece, so it'll be, you know, it can be like, or it can be slow. Well, then what about the third rhythm that drum set players play? And that would be a shuffle when we're playing this. And the first thing that you should immediately notice is that the shuffle rhythm is being doubled. And for every song that has a shuffle rhythm, you'll meet a drummer that has a different name for the rhythm. I can't tell you how many shuffle rhythm names there are because it's infinitesimal. Infinitesimal? Yes, infinitesimal. Write that one down. In fact, that's one of the shuffle rhythms. The infinitesimal shuffle rhythm. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that the shuffle is the most emotional rhythm that a drum set player will play. It has to be the most relaxed. You have to be able to, like, and it's got to happen, you know, or whether it's or it has almost as many infinite variables as a jazz beat does. When I'm playing straight up ahead jazz, when I'm doing that, I'm not thinking of anything else other than complimenting the music, commenting on the music. It's like 20 guys in a barbershop all talking at once. Jazz is intimate conversation. And out of that intimate conversation is this. And what you can't see right now is that my heel is rocking on 1 and 3, so you're getting this. Heel toe, heel toe, heel toe, heel toe. If I take the hi-hat out, if I take the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just do this, sounds a lot like gish-gash. Gish-gash is a term that all the drummers that I grew up with, you know, if we didn't like what you were playing, we just thought it was all a bunch of nonsense. Gish-gash. You don't want gish-gash when you're kids, when you're working with your ensembles in schools. Hi-hat in rock music is your metronome. The defining instrument in the kit is the bass drum. The bass drum is what determines each different song, because the 2 and 4 on the snare drum is what's keeping the pulse for the audience. The hi-hat is played for the musicians in the ensemble. The snare drum is played for those that are listening. The bass drum is what determines the different parts of the song. The best rock drummer to learn these concepts is Ringo Starr and the Beatles. When you talk about great rock drummers, and this debate's been going on for 60 years, the one thing that can never be said is that even if you put Buddy Rich or Neil Peart or anyone else in the Beatles, the parts that they would play would never be better and more suited for the songs than what Ringo Starr wrote and played for Lennon and McCartney and George Harrison's songs. Ringo's drum set parts are extraordinarily correct. And that's why one of the reasons, main reasons really, that the Beatles songs then when they were new, now, you know, 40, 50, 60 years later, are still so fresh sounding. Because what Ringo played functionally on the drum set was so musically appropriate. Okay, so let's make this, you know, let me close here and make this so simple and connect what I just said with Ringo. Essentially, in the last 100 years, there's only 3 drum set rhythms that your students will have to know. The first one is the shuffle. And of course, the shuffle rhythm comes from triplets, the idea of 3 notes per beat, and with the shuffle, the middle note's gone. So if I played, and then I take out the middle note, sounds like a 6/8 march. Well, guess what? It's very much related to a 6/8 march. In fact, you could even say it is a 6/8 march. The difference between and this, if we wrote it down on paper, there is no difference. For purposes of ensembles with a drum set, we call it a shuffle. The second one is your jazz cymbal beat, which in terms of drummers in the 20s, when the Charleston came out and the foxtrot, when the next generation of young people were taking this new music in America called jazz, instead of playing, they speeded it up, and instead of going, they wanted it to be faster than that, so they took the shuffle out, they took the second note out, and they took out the sixth, excuse me, is that right? The sixth note, yeah, sixth note out. So now you get this. So instead of, you get this. And when that change was made, the hi-hat wasn't even developed yet. The hi-hat didn't even come around until the 30s. We'll talk about how a low hat and what a low hat was and how we came the hi-hat. That'll be another video. But this rhythm that went to the jazz cymbal beat added the hi-hat, so you get this. You add the double bass, and the ladies have to dance, so you throw in the backbeat 2 and 4. And when you put in Gene Krupa, you might get something like this. And we call that sing, 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 and you probably already know all about that. Once we switch from jazz into rock music, then the functions of the kit somewhat changed. In the jazz era, the most important instruments, the prized instruments of drummers, were their cymbals. The ride cymbal, their hi-hats. Once Papa Joe started playing his hi-hats, that became a big deal. Once we switched into the rock era, Then we switch from cymbals being crucially important to bass drum, snare drum. And so these days, you ask a guy, what's your favorite drum? Chances are he's going to say a snare drum. It's the most expensive drum. It's the drum that can help you define your sound. When you listen to toms, tom-toms sound like tom-toms. You can make subtle changes with sizes and depth, heads and so forth. Ah yes, the phone. I was afraid that was going to happen. Anyway, listen, until next time, thanks for listening. This is Drum Set Instruction for Musical Educators. I am Warren Smith. Check me out on warrensmithdrums.com. Thanks a lot. See you real soon. Oh, pardon me while I get the phone.